Good morning, everyone. Wow, do we ever have a good program today, because I know that people with young people in school are thinking college and all that goes with it. And we have a gal that Chris is going to tell you about.
Good morning. Welcome to Now You Know. And before I introduce our guest, a couple of things. You know summer's coming because today we're going to put our boat in. So that's exciting. Katie, you got your boat in yet?
Next week, Louise.
All right. Summer is coming, so I'm kind of excited about that. Also, one other thing that I want to mention, yesterday in the Morning Sentinel there was a really nice article on our station manager, John Harlow.
Yes.
Talking about all the innovations that John has made to Somerset Channel 11 since he came on board a few years ago. And John, you know, John's behind the camera all the time, so you guys don't get to see him, but he's made some serious innovations here and brought us into the modern era with digital technology and everything, and we're better off for it. So congratulations, John. Take a bow behind the camera. Go right ahead. All right, there we go. Okay, our guest today, you know, I think I did this 2 years ago. I said, you know, we look far and wide for talent to put onto this show. But sometimes some of the best talent is right in your own backyard, and in this case, right in my own house. And so we have today my wife, Claire Terrio Perkins, who is going to be speaking about changes in education since she's been teaching, basically, which runs back into the you know, this will say how old we are, I guess, but back into the 1980s and how it's changed to today's era right here in 2017. And because Claire took the time to type out a little biographical sketch of herself, I'll read it off here, okay, so you can have it. And actually, there was one thing she put in here that I had forgotten all about, so I was going to ask her about that. Claire is recently retired professor and adjunct professor of accounting and management information systems at the University of Maine at Augusta. She's been teaching at UMA since 1991 and has extensive experience in teaching courses utilizing distance learning technologies, and we'll get into that a little bit. Claire has taught at Thomas College and has worked in public accounting and private industry. Claire is also on the board of directors of Skowhegan Savings Bank, past president of the Maine Association of Accounting Professors, member of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, member of the Institute of Management Accountants and Maine Society of CPAs. Claire has a BS in accounting and a Master of Science in Taxation from Bentley University. She's a CPA, certified management accountant, and certified in financial management. That's a lot of stuff, a lot of letters behind her name and so forth. The one thing I had forgotten was that you were past president of the Maine Association of Accounting Professors. How long ago was that?
Oh, that was probably, thank you, Chris, for that wonderful introduction, and Katie.
Well, you wrote it.
That's what happens in academia. You always have to have these bios ready, because when you do a public show like this, or public speaking. But that was probably 10, maybe 15 years ago. I had several you know, stints as president. We rotated around the state. A group of professors started this many years ago, just to get together and meet twice a year and hash new things and come up, you know, share new ideas on how to teach accounting and what works, what doesn't work. So you know, we don't all recreate the wheel. And it's been fun, it's been educational, as well as social. So
but that was quite a few years ago that you were that.
Probably right? At least 10.
Yeah,
maybe
10
15.
Time flies.
Time flies, yes.
Now, you were a adjunct professor of accounting. We all know what that is, but probably not everybody knows what management information systems is. And of course, I've lived with you and you had that title for so many years, and I still can't really give you a good explanation of that, so why don't you try that?
Okay, everyone knows what accounting is, but people think of the debits and the credits and keeping the books. Well, accounting is a whole lot more these days. You know, you are a financial advisor now, whether you're working for one company or as a certified public accountant. But management information systems is kind of the liaison between the computer science portion of a company and the management. So someone in management information systems tries to see how computer systems can be used appropriately to help make business decisions and help managers do their jobs. So it's that cross, from the soft skills of management and analytical skills of management to the real computer science and what kind of technology will help and what kind of business applications will help. So they analyze, what's the problems, what do we need, and then, it's a team effort. Get together with the computer people and say, okay, how can we make this happen?
How can you use computers in
How can we use computers?
And
what applications, are out there to make our jobs easier and to give us the information? So,
and God knows, computers are involved in everything these days.
They absolutely are.
And it's absolutely amazing. And that's going to be kind of a piece, and maybe even a big piece of what we're talking about, the evolving, how education has changed over the last 30 some odd years. So we'll get into that here today. And Claire, also being the professor that she is and note taker and very organized, has given me kind of a track to run on today. So that's always nice too. And so we're going to take you from the old days being the 1980s. Now, Katie's behind the scenes. She probably professed that old days go back a lot farther than the 1980s. But anyways, this was the start of Claire's teaching career. And she started at Thomas College, and you were at Thomas College for how many years?
7 years.
7 years,
Yep,
and then
moved on to University of Maine at Augusta.
In '91, you went to the University of Maine
Yes.
at Augusta, and were there on a full-time basis until how many years ago?
Oh, probably 3-4 years
Three,
ago.
four.
I took early retirement. And
Yep, and you've gone back on occasion to substitute teach.
Yes,
when they needed you.
Yes, and do adjunct as needed.
And adjunct as needed. Okay. So when you started, let's actually take you back to the start of your Thomas College career and tell me what was it like then? I mean, what were the students like? What was the educational experience like? And just to give people an idea of, and they'll be able to see
Sure.
how much different it was to
Sure.
today's standards.
And I started at Thomas in 1984, and Chris and I went to college in the 70s. So we remember college, and in 1984 it wasn't so different. That you go to campus, you bring your books, you take lots of notes, you take the exams, paper and pencil or pen. I remember those blue books, where we do all our long essays for some of the liberal arts exams, and of course, and I had accounting and a lot of math classes, so that was the pencil. And many courses still didn't let you use a calculator back then, so never mind a computer.
If you could afford a calculator.
Yeah, if the calculators now that you can buy for $10 cost $100 back then.
That's right. I remember, my first calculator. That was a big deal.
It was a big deal.
And I think, it was, about this size or whatever.
Yeah,
and
about the size of your cell phone
I
now.
think we spent, I don't know, $120, $150 on it. Same thing would cost $5 now, probably.
Right. And all it could do was add, subtract, multiply, divide, and maybe a square root.
Yeah.
That was about it. And that was an expensive calculator, and it was a big purchase back then.
That was a big thing.
Right.
And now, you and I went to college in the 1970s, and I think in the 1980s were not dramatically different from the 1970s. And of course, I remember back then, I mean, you'd have to go to lectures, and you would have to take copious notes.
Yes.
And I remember sitting there and writing down just as rapidly as the professor would say something, all the notes. And then, of course, I'd take it back, and then with the quality of my handwriting, I'd be looking at it and go, oh, I'm not so
Yes.
sure I can do that. And I knew a few. And one of the things back then, if you wanted to skip class, you made sure that some friend who was a good note taker was there, so you would have that information.
Yes.
But bottom line is, you were as a student, you were there on the campus. You had a professor in front of you, you would go to class, and if you missed class, then too bad, unless somebody was there taking notes for you. So that's the way it was, and I'm assuming that's pretty much the way it was in the 1980s.
Yes, and students had to come to class. It was attendance, and 3 strikes and your grade would go down or something like that. And I remember attendance in college, but when I first started at Thomas, we always took attendance. Classes were 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday for a little bit longer. Had to show up. And it was very much, students are there, teachers there, I talk, you listen.
Yeah.
Students would ask questions, obviously, but it was basically they took a lot of notes, and the teacher would regurgitate a lot of things.
Yeah, I'm assuming back then that the attendance was generally pretty good at classes,
Oh, absolutely.
because they knew if they missed a class, they could miss something significant that might be on the final exam.
Mm-hmm.
So there was quite a bit riding on being at a class, and usually you wouldn't miss unless you were, well, for the most part, sick or something.
Right.
At that point, so that was pretty much the way it was back then. I knew you took a lot of notes and so forth, and you were talking earlier about the blue books. Well, that was a big term back then, is you'd have these.
They do still exist.
They still do, but you
Yes.
would take, and I remember when I was taking government history classes, things like that. The professor would usually ask 3 or 4 big broad questions that you had to expound upon, and then you'd have an hour and a half or whatever, or maybe 3 hours depending on the situation, and you write like crazy for those hours on that and try to get everything in. So and so that was pretty much the way it was, and once again the 1980s were probably pretty similar to that.
Yes, and and the classroom was a little different. We had a chalkboard, and we still have chalkboards, although most colleges are now into whiteboards, and the whiteboards have a little computer system hooked up to it so they can take a picture of it, and a number of classrooms don't even have that, and everything is electronic. But the student population was 18 to 22, maybe 23 or 24. Typical, right after school, right after high school, you go to college, and you live away from home, and it's your big thing to live away from home, and you attended these lecture halls. And
so back then you were dealing with the what I would call the more traditional students. Of course, when I went to school, the vast majority of students were in the 18 to 22 age range going to college. So and that's the way it was at Thomas College in the 1980s.
Right, and then you get a couple people that might be hitting 30, and they felt old in those classrooms because they may have children and they're coming back to school, but they were far and few between, especially during the the regular day classes. And Thomas at that time and still has more traditional students attending day classes, and then they have an evening program where more of the adults go because that's when they can go.
I don't even recall non-traditional students when I was in college. Almost everybody fit into that mode of 18 to 22.
Right. Other than a veteran coming back to school.
Maybe a veteran coming back. So, at that point, people thought that, once you finish college, then I don't know if your learning was over, but there were very few that came back to any.
That's right.
At that point.
That's right. They thought they were too old, or obviously they had jobs and families, and just it was too big of a burden to go back.
Yeah, you go into the business world, and you're working hard and trying to support your family and so forth, and you really didn't feel that you had time to do anything else.
That's right.
And so once college was over, that was pretty much it, unless you were one of the small percentage that went on to some sort of graduate school, and then it would continue from there. But even after that, you were into the working world, and formal education was pretty much over with back then.
That's right. And just thinking back, the college kids lived in the dorms, and they weren't the nice apartments that we have now in some college campuses. You were in dorms, 2 people squished in, sometimes 3 people squished in, and there was a phone at the end of the hall or downstairs even that everybody used to call home once a week. Yeah. If you were lucky.
Yeah, that's right. you would.
And it was expensive to call home once a week, even though that was still, let's say here in Maine or, only 100 miles away.
Well, yeah, and just as an example, because once again, 1970s versus 1980s.
Even the 80s, there were no cell phones then.
No cell phones. So I would call home periodically, and guess what the major reason was why you'd call home?
Need money, Mom.
That's exactly right. You call home and ask for money.
Please send money.
Yeah, and send money. So I like to think that you missed your parents and all that stuff, but usually after the adjustment in the first year, it wasn't so much a case of that. It was a case of needing money on occasion,
right.
and that's what happened. They'd send me money every once in a while, although probably like most students, you're on a fairly strict allowance, and
right.
you couldn't blow it
right.
from that point. And I used to call home, and sometimes I reversed the charges, and that got too expensive, so they said, no more of that stuff. So
it was very expensive to make phone calls.
Yeah.
Even 30 years ago, it was.
And then we had, I lived in a fraternity. Of course, fraternity life has changed, and in many cases it's been phased out. But back then, we'd have one phone in the place, and you'd have to share time on the phone. And if somebody else needed the phone, you'd have to get off the phone, and that was pretty much how that worked. Once again, 1980s probably not dramatically different in that respect.
Right. And, exactly. And the other thing, thinking you were talking about computers is. When we went to school, I remember getting the tour of the computer center, because of course being in accounting, they were just, we were using computers, but it was a big IBM in a separate room with, the room was as big as a kitchen or a living room would be. And that certainly has changed, because computers now are our phones and our laptops and tablets, and, and even the servers now in institutions are, they might be in a room, but it's more because of climate control and security rather than that it needs a separate room by itself. They're not big anymore.
No, of course, I remember that too. You'd have just a huge computer that would take an entire room, and if you had a computer course, you would have to have scheduled time to be on that computer, okay, and you better do it in the time period that you had. And I also remember I was awful at it, okay, so I can tell you that, but you had to be very precise. What was it, COBOL, WAPBAL, some
COBOL and basic
or whatever, whatever it was back then. You had
we're programming
specific language that you'd have to type into for a result, and if you missed a punctuation thing or a period or didn't type in a capital letter or something, it would throw off the whole thing that you were trying to do, and then you'd have to go back and try to figure it out as to what you did wrong. And I'm certainly not a person of great precision doing that, and it was awful for me, because you had to be very, very precise.
And it would take you an hour to tell the computer to add 1 + 1. Basically, yes.
So every time, of course, you hear people launch into the good old days, okay? Well, the good old days were not always the good old days, and when you sit here and you think of some of the things that you had to deal with and go through back then, it really has changed dramatically, and in not all cases, of course, but in many cases for the better.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
and just kind of evolving into what's now. First of all, some of the demographics before, not just computers. I mean, obviously computers have changed, but some of the demographics. Students now, I mean, there's a number of traditional age of students, which is that 18 to 24, but more and more adults are going back to school, and this is wonderful. So I want to encourage all our listeners and viewers, if you've ever thought about going back to school, maybe finishing that degree or starting one, no matter what age, there are courses for you. You can take a course, you can enroll in a program and get your degree. It's not as intimidating as it was, because all schools now cater to what we call non-traditional learners, but even that word's an old word now, because it can be any age from 16 to 100. There's programs now. University of Maine Augusta has, actually the entire university system has it, as well as Kennebec Valley Community College and other private schools, where high school students can take college credit. And to the point that they can take these courses in the high school. There's a lot of collaboration with the high schools to have the college courses come to them, so the students can take, college writing in high school and get dual credit for their high school diploma, as well as now they have some college credit, and they've also just proved themselves that they can do this. And plus it increases the aspiration, so now maybe I can go to college.
Yeah, I've heard of these programs now where certain colleges have arrangements with high
Yes.
schools, and they will come in and you're able to take specific college or pre-college classes right in a high school setting to kind of almost acclimate you
Yes.
to college in advance and make you maybe more comfortable in applying for
Right.
college and building contacts with colleges.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting, and I know you're aware of this. I think Skowhegan High School does that
Skowhegan
with
High School, area high school
with
does,
currently with
yes.
Thomas College,
Yes.
and I think that's a great thing.
Yes.
So people can acclimate. But if you're some, say, 40-year-old and you've been out of the
Okay.
education process for quite a while, and then you say, my God, I really never did finish that degree. I want to go back to get that degree. I mean, what's the easiest contact or way to go about
Okay.
that?
So and that's where my love of
Yeah.
teaching has really thrived. When I went to the University of Maine at Augusta, I delved into the world from going from a very traditional college background to now being with non-traditional students, and similar with the with community colleges. Excuse me, they're no longer vocational schools, where these schools cater to adults coming back to school. It's not just high school graduates. So the 40-year-old or the 30-year-old or the 50-year-old, even the retiree coming back to school is, first of all, made much more comfortable. So the first thing I can tell people is, if you have any, inkling about taking a class, well, you can go online at the website, or you can stop by one of the schools if you're in Augusta or in Fairfield for the community college, or anywhere else in Bangor, or call them up and say, where do I start? What do I do? Now, if, most people are online these days, or, if you're not, maybe a friend or a family member can help you. The websites have so much information now, especially school websites. Their purpose in life is to give information. So where do you start? How do you apply? What do I even want to major in? The best idea is to, explore there, but start by thinking, okay, what interests me? What would interest me? What kind of courses would interest me? Look at their offerings. Do you have a hobby that you would love to learn more about? That might be, that might be helpful.
Do you have, in college, do you have somebody comparable to a guidance counselor in high school that can help you explore your interests and help you decide on what you want to do?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There are academic advisors. There's just advisors to help. At the University of Maine at Augusta, we have a very strong advising office that will help you start, okay, how do I do this? When do I apply for admission? When do I have to send my money? There's, also, we have all that information readily available, but the advising office will sit down with you and say, and the key questions are, what are your interests? And I can tell you some of the things they ask you here. There's programs for first-time students, first-generation students who, their parents haven't gone to school, so the parents can't fill them in as to what college life is about. Or you're coming back after so many years, not going to school. But the advising office helps you with this career development, and there's something called the Myers-Briggs testing, and just a variety of testing to say what are your interests, what are your strengths, your weaknesses. Now, you know, a lot of people say they're math phobic. Well, if you are, and if you're not sure, you can be tested for that. But if you are, well, you may not want to major in mathematics, but English might be wonderful, or social services. Mental health and human services is the largest program at the University of Maine at Augusta. History, political science. There's so many different avenues that you can go in. If you like computers, you're going to get into computer. You can get into computer programming, or web-based, how to build a website. There's a lot of different things. So one of this is to identify what your interests are. So the advising office will help you that. There's the career counselors. There's a lot of information at the state level as well. The Myers-Briggs indicator, there's workshops that will help you, the testing that will help you steer you to, okay, are you an introvert, are you an extrovert, do you want to work with people, or do you rather work behind a computer? It's if you're an introvert, trying to go for a real extroverted career might not work for you, it might be uncomfortable, but so you have to work within your personality types as well. So, what are your interests?
Because it can be very intimidating from somebody who's been out of the education system for quite a period of time to try to go back in and essentially, I don't know about compete, but be with the younger folks whose brains are perhaps a little bit more into the process than yours is. So there certainly can be an acclimation period. And the other thing is, a number of people didn't go to school initially either because of family situations, financial constraints, all sorts of things, and just may lack the confidence. Maybe growing up, their family perhaps didn't value education as much. Parents didn't have more than a high school education, so even though a lot of times they may be very talented, very capable, it may be difficult for them to realize their ability and have the confidence to go back in the process again.
And while you're talking about that, I'm shuffling my papers here, but one of the things, I took out some statistics about the university if anyone wanted to know, but at the university level, the average age, this is the University of Maine at Augusta, the average age is 33. And so someone 40, that sounds, oh, that's still young. Well, don't forget, there's 16, 17, 18, a lot of 18-year-olds. Only 32% of the entire student body, there's about 6,000 students that go to the University of Maine at Augusta or its various locations because it has a statewide delivery system. Only 32% is of that traditional age. That's a lot. That is, older.
Yeah.
32% are the traditional, you come from high school and go on to college.
Yeah.
So there's a large military, they serve, they come back on military benefits, but that's a different population. They've seen the world and they've seen some terrible things in the world. So there's a lot of extra programs to help them, first of all, readjust back to civilization here back in the States, or okay, I have to, I'm not in combat anymore. And so there's a lot of military coming back. There's a lot of moms coming back, and that was kind of my love of University of Maine at Augusta, especially in the business program. For many years, I was the only female teaching in the business program. The females gravitated towards me as a mentor, role model. But right now, the University of Maine at Augusta, all programs, it's 72% female. 72% female, and part of that is we have a very, the most popular program is Health and Human Services, which is a great need for. But the other part of that is because University of Maine Augusta caters to adult learners and is very open to them and helps them get back up to speed with you know, some remedial courses, because it's been 10, 20 years since you've had math, and 10, 20 years since you've written a, you know, a composition or an essay.
Yeah.
A lot of moms are coming back to school. You know, the kids are now in school. You know, you're in your 30s, the kids are in school, and now it's like, okay, I have some time, let's go back to school.
Yeah, it's time for me.
Right. Or,
Yeah.
you know, I've been doing this pretty much dead job, and I'm tired of doing this dead-end job, and all right, I want to do better. Let's go back to school. And you can come part-time, you can go full-time, you can come at night, you can go online. It's so much easier to get a degree now than 30 years ago.
Than it was. And one thing about University of Maine at Augusta, it's an open admissions process, so you don't have to do testing,
Yes.
specific testing and things like that.
Yes.
So it's a little less intimidating in terms of trying to
Yes.
get into the school. So that's a good thing.
Yes, so the University of Maine at Augusta and the community colleges are what's called open admissions. So you can apply. You do not have to have taken the SATs, because if you're 35, 40, 50, 60 years old taking the SAT exam, you know, those exams that the kids take in high school to get
Yeah.
into college, you know, when's the last time you had geometry? I mean, you're not going to do well unless you have, you know, spent a lot of time prepping for it. I should say you're not going to do well, but, you know, some of those skills that we had in high school, we're not using on a day-to-day basis. So you don't need to take the SATs, although they're, you know, if you're just coming out of high school, I would suggest you take the SATs, and that will give you the benefit of, you know, applying to any school.
Now,
But there is testing.
mm,
So what happens is, okay, I'm 40 years old, I'm 35 years old, the kiddos are in school, I have some, you know, a little bit extra time, or I'm at my dead-end job, and this can be male or female. I want to better my life, or I just got laid off. You know,
Yeah.
I just got laid off here in Madison. You know, we just got laid off. What do we do now? There's a lot of work, you know, retraining. Okay, I'm going to go to school. I remember a gentleman, he was working at a manufacturing facility in western Maine, closed, came back. This guy was pushing 50. Not that 50's old, because it's young now for us.
No, it's young.
But, you know, this was a big thing. I mean, he had kids in high school.
Yeah.
And it was a big thing for him to come back to school and no longer be, you know, what he classified the primary breadwinner, and going from a very manufacturing job. You know, he was manufacturing, and he learned skills. But from my vantage point, he brought so much to the classrooms. You know, he was intimidated. I want you to think of this. You have, you know, a 20-year-old and a 50-year-old and everything between, and maybe a 60-year-old in the same room discussing something. The younger students have quickness. You know, they're quick. They think quick. They think fast. They have some of those academic skills that we wish we still had.
Right.
The older folks have life experience.
Right.
They have job experience. They have life experience. They've raised their children. They've seen it all. So you add those two together, and the older adults have more patience. You know, they'll think it through usually. Okay, let's look at it this way, because not everything is, you know, the first thing that you think of is the answer.
Not as much in a hurry. Now,
Right.
do you find with that interesting mix of young and old, do you find that some of the younger folks are listening and learning and absorbing the experiences that the older students share?
Yes, absolutely. I remember this one particular class. You know, I'm going to bring it to my grave, because it was such a rewarding moment as a teacher. It is Accounting 1. Now, Accounting 1, you know, financial accounting is a required course. Every business major has to take it. So there's a lot of people in there that don't want to be there. But this particular class, I had about 20 people. I had a high school student coming to Augusta on campus to take this class. And then I had someone who was about a year away from retiring from Central Maine Power. And if he was here today, he would tell all about it. And we do a lot of teamwork, you know, in the class. And somehow these two, this young lady and this older gentleman, were sitting next to each other, so they were working on our little projects together. Talk about enriching. They got along fabulously. And when they were sharing, it's like, well, you know, I thought of this. The young person was very quick and could do all the calculations really fast and everything. But the older person had that wisdom of, I've been around the block a few times and I've seen things. And would give this whole different perspective, and sharing it with everybody else in the class, it really, it was a depth that you just can't get without the variety of people.
Well, it would be an interesting mix of probably idealism with the young folks. Young folks are very idealistic. I mean, I was, and I like to think there's still some of that today, but you know, it's tempered now with perhaps some wisdom, a bit more skepticism.
Yes.
You know, those older folks had been in the working world, so they could see how things really worked, how education could be applied to work situations where these younger folks often didn't have that type of understanding. So I would think that it would be a very enriching experience, I would think, for some of the younger folks. I mean, you know, when you and I were in school, we were just in with contemporaries who didn't know anything about the real world any more than we did. You know, you'd think you knew it all, and you get out and say, oh my God, you know, I really don't know a whole lot. And it's amazing how your viewpoints would change over time with real experience. So.
Yeah, and one of the things too, by combining, you know, it's that diversity. You know, we talk a lot today about diversity of, you know, cultures and religions and backgrounds. Well, you know, diversity of age just brings more life to the learning process.
Yeah. Because
we all learn from each other. We, you know, when people apply that knowledge to a situation, talk about it in the classroom or online, in a discussion, they're bringing a whole set of information from their backgrounds, and having the different ages really broadens that learning. It broadens the perspective. The other thing too is, like in this accounting 1 class, in a required class, you know, you don't have to be there, but you have to, you know, you have to be there. You have to take it, but you don't. It's not your major. Well, the older students, you know, they're so focused. You know, you're 35, you're 40 years old, you want a better job, you don't have a lot of extra time.
True.
You know, either in your daily life or, you know, it's like, okay, I want a career, and now I only have 20 years for it, or 30 years, I don't have 40 years. And so they're much more focused. And so they cut to the chase. Like, I'm going to show up, I'm going to do my work, I'm going to, you know, do as much as I can. Yeah, the kids might keep me up at night and I can't get everything done, but I'm going to try as best I can. And that influences maybe somebody who's like, I don't really want to be here today. It's like, oh, I see why you're doing this. Because they really want to learn what's there. They don't want just the degree. They want to get that knowledge, and they want to apply it to their, you know, their current jobs, and hopefully maybe get a promotion or get a better job.
Yeah, I would think you would see that with older folks, because they're back for very specific reasons.
Very specific.
To do that, and they've already seen what works and what doesn't work, and they have very specific goals, and they probably have limited time. They may still be in jobs. They may still have kids at home. You know, other financial pressures. So if they're going to be doing this, they want to make sure it works out well for them.
That's right.
So, you know, and once again, some of the young students who may be a little more adrift and not quite sure their ultimate goals may learn from that experience.
Absolutely. And, you know, I mean, there's a whole social scene on campuses and things like that. So, I mean, that's part of learning too. But, you know, just that intensity in the classroom with the old, you know, if you're a mom or a dad, you know, okay, I'm here for a reason. I have chosen here. I'm paying for it this myself.
Yeah.
So I've chosen to come here. I'm going to make the most out of it as possible. So for those, you know, viewing today, if you have any doubts, if you think you want to go to college, I really would encourage you to explore that, because there is a program for you. There really is. There's, you know, call the school, or, you know, get a tour, go see ask about the advising office, and see what might interest you. And most of you can go down there and talk to somebody in person or call up on the phone or chat online for free. It doesn't cost to visit any school. Absolutely. Or to talk to somebody.
Yep. Hold on just a second. Katie has a question.
Ah, yes, Katie.
I think that there are people who, managers or the owners of a business, that want somebody to take a college course, even go back to college, because they're really good people. But on the other hand, the business is closing or something, or they want to give this person an opportunity to better himself or herself. So would you talk a little bit about companies that have decided to send their person to college?
Okay, and that gets to, you know, how can I afford to go to college, or as a business owner or a nonprofit, yeah, you see someone with potential, but yeah, they need some either training in a specific thing, or yeah, we really want you to get that degree. A lot of businesses will pay for their employees to go to school. Now, some might limit it to, you know, 1 class a semester or 2 classes a semester. I know the state, you know, state government, if you're in state government or if you work for an educational institution, they are, yes, big proponents of education. Most of the larger employers will pay for some college, but smaller ones do too. You know, they might put caveats on it, like you have to get a C or better, or you have to pass anyways, which, you know, they don't want to just shove out the money and you think you're going to college, but you're not, you know. And some might say, you pay and then we'll reimburse you.
Right.
Companies that pay for college education, you know, that's not taxable to the employee. And there are a lot of scholarships out there for people coming back to school, even those for, you know, part-time. So yes, companies, and I would encourage companies, even if they can't pay, you know, a full boat 1 class a semester, or if you see a person, you know, an employee with potential, that might be, that if you want to keep that in person, and you know, there's a whole, yeah, it's hard to get good employees. We don't have enough young people that stay in the area. That's a way to keep them. We value who you are and your potential, so we're going to send you to school. Now, how do you do that when you're working full-time? That's the trick. Or you're working crazy, you know, different hours. I mean, our businesses today, it's not all 8 to 5. You're working at night, you work weekends, you know, let's say you work for Walmart. Walmart has a program, but, you know, your shifts are all over the place. You work for Hannaford, you work for any retail outlet, you know, your shifts are all over the place. So that kind of gets into, I can't go to school Monday, Wednesday, Friday 3 times a week if don't know when I'm going to be working next week. Yeah. We have, school comes to you now. That's one of the benefits of this technology, you know, kind of being full circle, benefits of technology. So if your employer wants you to go to school, but it's like, well, I can't leave, you know, there's 5 people in our organization. They need me when they need me. There's online classes that you take at your convenience. No time, you know, that you have to absolutely be any one place. So if you are working in the afternoon, you can work on school in the morning. Some people like to work on it after the kids go to bed. I've had students working on it at 3 a.m. Well, whatever. Don't expect me up at 3 a.m. Yes, so here's a win-win for the employer and the student. Take a class, you know, find whichever school you want to go to and that offers, you know, courses that are available to you. You can do it online. The university system has, and particularly University of Augusta, we have this interactive television system that we've had for 30 years now, where the courses are broadcast, they're televised at your local high school. And a lot of them now, you can go to your local high school, and if perchance your local high school isn't picking up the feed, it is now streaming video. Okay, so you watch it on your home computer when you want to watch it, at least before the next class. University of Maine at Augusta, most of the classes are once a week. 3 hours or 2 hours and 45 minutes. There's a one-shot deal. You don't have to worry about babysitters 3 times a week or 3 nights a week. One-shot deal. If it's online, okay, it's online. And most of the things have video and chat rooms, and the testing's online. I know for me, and as well you know, Chris, because you've heard me, the tests are all online. I don't collect any papers anymore. Everything's electronic, because my students are everywhere in the state. I've also had students. I remember one gentleman was deployed in Afghanistan. He got shipped out halfway through the semester. Okay, fine, finish the class online. If you can. If not, we'll make other arrangements.
Well, certainly now, there's a great deal more convenience in being able to take classes. Going back to earlier in the show, I mean, we're saying you had to show up at the class, and if you didn't show up at the class, you were in trouble in terms of taking notes unless you had some friend who could take notes for you. Now you can do it anytime, anywhere, and so forth. Now, the other side of the coin is that it requires, because you don't have fixed periods of time, and you don't, and you had that specific discipline that you needed to be there. Okay, now you can take it anywhere, anytime, and so forth. I would think you would have to be, and particularly on an online basis where you're not really having a teacher in front of you, I would think you would need to be very disciplined in terms of being able to take that and learning that way. I'm just telling you how I learned, and of course that's many years ago, but I got a lot out of being in that classroom, sitting there, listening to the teacher say these things, taking the notes, and it would kind of, it was more likely to stick in my brain if I did it that way. With the online, you don't have that teacher in front of you anymore, and certainly the convenience factor is high. For somebody with a busy schedule, you can do that, but the learning wise, in my wife told me not to be negative before I went on the show, but I'm not so much that. I'm trying to just figure out in terms of quality of learning. It takes some people, I think, could perhaps do, highly motivated people could do online, but there's a lot of people that wouldn't be the right thing for.
It's not for everybody, and so I know at our school. We really counsel people, and myself as a teacher, I counsel people. Okay, you have XYZ classes for a program. If you want to do all online, you have to first of all be self-disciplined. You have to have good time management. It's very convenient and say, I'll take 5 classes. I'll take them all online. I don't have to show up for class, and I can work full time and have 3 kids. Well, as this is where the wisdom of old age comes in. Multitasking is one of the things that we have today, but we don't do anything well when we multitask to the point of exhaustion. You need to focus one thing at a time. Everyone has a life. Katie has a question.
Yes. I really think that people can succeed whether or not they have a mate. But the mate has to take responsibility along with the student.
Yes, absolutely, and I've seen it work and not work.
Yes.
If you are married or have a partner, you have several children together. If your partner does not want you to go to school, it's just that much more difficult. Whether it's traditional school or online, it's that much more difficult, and that's those relationships. I would strongly encourage the person to explain why you want to go to school, and that's going to better our relationship and our family in the long run. It's going to be tough in the short run. Having family support, friend support, so get that support system somehow, and if it can't be your spouse or your partner, then you find it elsewhere, because it makes it difficult. But kind of back to that time management. Again, this is what I see. This is from what my students tell me, because most of my students are adults, a lot of women, they have children, they work, busy schedules, as all of you know that have children or grandchildren, they don't stop. And once they get into sports and other activities, there's a lot of games to go to. So the students that succeed the best are self-motivated. They want to learn. They don't want to just get the degree or get the grade. They do want to learn. They set up a matrix of their time. They have good time management. Any successful person has good time management. They block off. All right. I work. I have children. Children of your family's priority as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to school. When am I going to have time for taking these classes online or otherwise? Set up, block off your schedule. Saying, okay, at night from 7 to 9 o'clock or 8 to 10 or 10 to midnight, whatever you have, or first thing in the morning. Some students work at 5 a.m. before they go to work. I am going to do an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. And then I'm going to make sure I do that, so many times a week. And stick to it. Unless there's a family emergency, stick to it. That is your time. You have a date with yourself. Okay? You're going to work on your classes. And you tell the kids, I don't want to be interrupted. This is where the partner and the mate really comes in handy. If it's Saturday morning and you're studying, the kids need to go to the park. Get them out of the house. It's quiet. Or you go to a library. Or you go to McDonald's and work on your laptop. Just someplace where it's quieter. And that's that self-discipline, time management. Just get to it, stop procrastinating, and doing it.
Now, it does require a great deal of self-discipline. And sometimes more self-discipline than some people can do. I mean, for example, at UMA, what percentage of students, pretty much go start to finish? When they go back, they get into this, what percentage say, boy, this is a bit too much for me, and don't make it?
Well, it's a big percentage, and I didn't write those down, but it is on the UMA website.
Yeah.
Excuse me. www.uma.edu. But that's on the UMA website. Now, UMA, just to get, I told you it's about 6,000 students total statewide. That includes our Bangor campus. There's approximately 3,000 full-time equivalent students, so about half.
Okay.
You take all those students, say they take 4 or 5 classes, now you come down to a 3,000 student body.
And these are all commuter students, right?
They're all commuters. There's no dorms.
No dorms.
There's, a few people might live in apartments close. But, so there's a lot of part-time students. So a lot of students start out taking 1 or 2 classes and realize either it's not for me, they're not academically prepared or don't want to be prepared. There's, financial constraints come into play, or life happens.
Oh, yeah.
Life sometimes happens, you have to give up something. If the kids get sick, or whatever.
After listening to you over the years on this thing, life happens seems to be one of the biggest reasons.
Life happens.
Right. Unfortunately, family circumstances sometimes get in the way of this, and that they don't finish.
Right. But if that's you, those of you viewing this today, you can come back. Your credits stay there. If you do have some college credit, you come back. The credits stay there. You can transfer them into any, as long as they're from an accredited school, you get those credits, and you can keep plugging away.
Well, I think one of the key things is that if you are experiencing those circumstances, that once again, if it's a life circumstance, that it's not going to be something that's easy to overcome for a period of time, is to go to your professor or whatever and say, look, here's what the issues are, and I don't think I can continue, rather than trying to struggle or just not do your stuff and then flunk the course,
Right. And one of the things I always advise people is to, if life happens, if you just can't deal with it, let's say you're taking 4 classes, well, maybe it's best to drop 2 of them. Yeah. Maybe it's best to drop all of them, and there's a whole system of add drop. You can get some of your money back, or you don't get penalized. Just don't stop showing up, because that looks like you don't care.
Right.
If life happens, contact the professor, contact the school, tell them the situation, and we can help you advise which classes to keep, which classes to to drop, or maybe you need to take the whole semester off and deal with your life.
Be honest with yourself and be
Yes.
honest with your professor so that they understand those things.
Yes.
Now, going back just a little bit, as we're actually, this hour is shot by rather quickly, which is a good thing, and talk a little bit more about the changes in technology over the years. And you got down here, notes are recorded on tablet, laptop, phone, downloaded from the instructor, and all of those things.
Right.
So that's surely a heck of a lot different than it was 30 or 40 years ago.
Right. So students, especially in a classroom that does use a lot of technology, you don't necessarily have to take all those notes. Although I suggest taking some because if you write it down, it slows your brain down and it gets into your brain. But the notes, the instructor often posts the notes.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my lecture notes. You have them, so you can read them. Read them in advance. They'll post a video online. You can look at that over and over and over. I've posted my lectures in video online. If it's an online class, everything's there, so you can keep referring to it. So you don't even have to take notes. Now, that doesn't mean it's easier.
Yeah.
No. It means you have to read them or view it. So.
And you have a way too of determining whether
Yes.
the student has viewed
Yes.
it and has done what they said
with the
they were gonna do.
technology, students will say, well, how come I didn't do well? Well, I have a way, you never watched online. I have, lectures just like this. You never watched it. Well, how do you know? Because I have all the statistics on every single time you logged into the website. So, don't try to cheat.
There's a little bit of Big Brother in this thing.
I know if you participated or not, or even logged in.
But you can tell when the student's
management.
being honest or not, and
Yes.
that they have really worked. But with this type of technology, to do things on tablet and
your phone,
notebook, computer, and your phone, and this and that. I mean, there's no reason not to be able to access things these days.
Right.
And as I said, boy, back in the old days, you missed a lecture. Oh God, you could have missed a major component of what might be on your exam.
Now you can download it and listen to it on your phone.
Listen to it and really access it anytime you want, anywhere, anyhow.
And absolutely.
And so accessibility is certainly there.
Accessibility is easier.
Yeah.
And so what I would suggest everyone, if college is in your eye, go for it. Have the courage. That's the hardest part, is taking the first step. And we talked about time management. There's a lot of technology there to help you. If you're scared of technology, people will help you learn that. But just keep your eye on the goal. You can do it. A lot of people have. So I would encourage you, go for your goals. Just go there.
Well, as I said, it's nice to know that there is plenty of avenues to get back into education if you want to, and probably the biggest hindrance is you yourself by not having the confidence to go back and try. But certainly the availability is there.
Yes.
And hopefully you can get the confidence to go back and do it, because everybody deserves the opportunity to reach their potential.
Yes.
And some people reach it earlier than others, but now, unlike many years ago, there's that ability to go back later in life and get the field that you may have always wanted to do, but you couldn't because of life circumstances. So, and we certainly have covered a lot of ground and taken you from the 1980s or 1970s into the year 2017, and
very inspirational.
The changes have been absolutely amazing over the years, and they continue to change, and they continue to change at an ever-increasing pace. So it's hard for older folks like me to keep up with all this, but it's good to see all the pluses that have happened over the years as well. So I'd like to thank my wife, Claire Terrio Perkins, for coming on the show. And this has been a very interesting program, and now you know.